And let me just start by, I won't be leading the PowerPoint presentation, so you can give a round of applause for that. But I will say, and this is my moment to get to, I guess, just get real excited and try to express my enthusiasm and hopefully ask for your, I'm speaking to the council members, for your leadership on this, because this is a wonderful opportunity for us. We're all, as elected officials, caught up often in the day-to-day putting out the fires, for those planners, the short-term planning. This is a chance for us to get back and do some long-term planning, going through this how did we grow process. And growing up as a native in Central Florida, when I was a kid, this area was the fastest growing, or one of the fastest growing regions in all the country. And going on through college and then into the early 2000s, still the fastest growing region, or one of the fastest growing regions in Florida. And even after the Great Recession, here we are again. We're still one of the fastest growing regions in all of the country. And through that process in 2007, 2006, 2007, you all know this, but we went through the how shall we grow process. And I will just share with you, again, speaking to elected officials, I poll on a regular basis. I'll poll my constituency. I actually pay my own money to do this, just because I think it's not only important to be out there and be doing coffee conversations and those kind of things and meeting with people on a regular basis, but then also polling on a broader scale. And I do this regularly, and I can tell you, without a doubt, across whatever party, cross-party boundaries, growth and how shall we grow, the issues that come along with growing, growth management, water resource protection, are at the top of the list. Every year I poll it, at least in Lake County it is. So the data that I was actually able to use, even through, quite frankly, my campaign, last campaign, coming from some of the data that was captured from how shall we grow, I was actually able to utilize. And so from a policy standpoint also, being an elected official as a county commissioner in Lake County, I'm able to use the data and the results of how shall we grow and helping me make policy decisions. And that's what this is about. We're going to be hopefully going into the next step in how did we grow. And I know Shelley, I'd like to introduce Shelley at this point to come on up and walk us through the presentation.
You want me over there?
That would be great. Thank you.
Great. Hi, everyone. Hi. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Got a can like this. Can everyone hear me okay? Is that all right? So one of the things that we began talking about, how many of you were here in the December presentation? So I know, okay. To update those of you who weren't, this is now the report that was given out then, and I believe that we are going to be taking, that was done in the consent agenda to approve this report. It is amazing, and I am so proud to be a part of the group that worked together to put this information together. Because I think the chairman said it so well. This is great data and information, but it's more than that. It's about the story of Central Florida and how we've grown over the last decade, and it's an amazing story. I do want to acknowledge first that how this came about. So Harry, has it been about a year ago now? Before Harry Farley, and if I could take a moment to recognize Harry Farley, former head of, my husband always used to say during the How Shall We Grow period, I actually was spending more time with Harry Barley than with him. So he was instrumental in the very beginning of pulling together the concepts and the ideas that really drove How Shall We Grow. So about a year ago, before his retirement, he pulled the team together that originally had started, the Orlando Economic Partnership, certainly the Regional Planning Council, and MetroPlan Orlando to say, okay, it's time. It's been a decade, and now it's time to talk about how did we grow? Where were our strengths? Where are our opportunities? And what are we going to do about that? And that's what's in this report. Unbelievable recommendations by county and many cities on where the growth happened, where it didn't happen, where our strengths are, and where our weaknesses are. And so now what do we do with it? And I think that was one of many of your comments last time. So what? So what do we do and why do it? To me, and when I had lots of conversations with Commissioner Parks, this is such an incredible leadership opportunity that I believe can be led through the Regional Planning Council. It's your mission to talk about growth, to talk about the issues that matter most, as Commissioner just said, to so many of us still, about how growth is being managed, where it isn't and where it isn't. I still run into people who go, whatever happened to that, how shall we grow? What do we learn? So this is a great opportunity, and with staff of all three organizations, we'd like to recommend the following. A 4-point rollout that will allow the community to do a couple things. First of all, the first part is just sharing the story. That's going to take some time. While each of these sound very simple, there's a whole lot of detail underneath each one of these to get us to the point where we tell the story the way that all of you would like it told. For example, how Orange County tells a story might be a little different than Lake County. Your data is different. There's some major themes that we all want to tell, but then there's some really interesting specifics about each county and many of the cities within it. So how do we shape that story? We'd like to recommend today the formation of a leadership council who represents the counties and some of the cities that are represented on here to help put this plan together. What are the major story points? Who do we need to go talk to? Every one of you have, I'll use my terminology, a Rolodex of people and community groups who would love to hear the story. Who are they? Who needs to be our media partners on this? How do we roll it out so that we get a critical mass in telling the story? And that will overlap with the next piece, which is inviting feedback. The staff of the Regional Planning Council, along with partners, has worked diligently at putting together a survey that now, once we tell them what we did do, and where we did have strengths and opportunities, what's their vision of the next 10 years? What do they want to see? Where should we be focusing? And the survey is high level, but detailed enough where we will be able to get some really good feedback by county on the direction you would like to see, and especially for the Regional Planning Council, I think really sets up 3 and 4. So once we get that feedback back, what do you want to do with it? Certainly it will drive setting the next direction, the next regional planning, the strategic regional policy plan. What does that look like? How do you want to shape it? What's your role at the council on making sure you're leading in the way that people are asking you to lead? So those are the 4 points. We had lots of conversation yesterday about the length of time. I have a sense of urgency about this the older I get. So of course I was coming in going, yeah, we can get this done in 6 months. And many of the people in the room were like, Shelley, that's probably pretty optimistic. So we're looking at somewhere between a year and a year and a half to detail out. Now, if we can keep the urgency up, certainly we want to, because again, creating critical mass, especially with the media, will really help us gain people's involvement in the survey. And that's what we want most, first and foremost, telling the story, but then getting feedback on where we need to go next. What I think is really fascinating about this whole process, I firmly am convinced, it's not just about the data, but it's about the leadership who is going to take these stories and move this region into the next decade. It's a great opportunity. Commissioner Parks has asked that I come in and help advise the project, and I am so thrilled to do that. I think for me, it is the project that I've been most passionate about for the last 15 years, and I am honored to help out in any way I can. What questions or comments could I take from you, and what suggestions do you have?
I think this is fascinating. Unfortunately, I missed this summer meeting. I'd love to either get a copy of the project book to look at it. And I'm only speaking on behalf of Orange County. So obviously our population is huge, and you can literally drive down one road and have issues completely unrelated. And so when you talk about sharing your story, which I think is phenomenal, even like my district, I actually have the smallest district in the county, but I have the most populated district in Orange County. And I kind of break it up into 5, my little district in 5. And when you talk about sharing your story, which I think is so great because it engages the public and feeling that they're getting to us. And I commend Commissioner Parks on his your surveys, because I like to be very visible and here, and I actually have a leadership conference just for my district on issues that my district cares about, not what the county says is going on, but with my folks. So how do you say, I can understand inviting feedback and all that, but sharing the story, how do we do that in a positive, productive way?
And Commissioner, such a great question, because I think what we talked about a lot yesterday is that while we will have regional story points, what we have to do is customize your story for you to tell. That's why to me it's a leadership issue. So the great thing is, this planning council has so much information. It can take it down. I'm looking at PJ, make sure that I'm not saying anything wrong, but take this information down to a really district level, right? And it's amazing. So you can customize your presentation, and we can help you do that on what's most important to the people in your community. Some of them are going to be consistent, like water use. Where are we not? But again, you can bring that down to a local level. That's why the leadership council becomes really important. So we begin to identify what are those talking points down to the area level.
Yeah, Shelley, I missed the November meeting also, so I didn't get it, but, the little book, but.
Yeah, books.
We have books for everybody.
We sent to the link because it's such a big thing, we sent to the link, but we have printed books.
Perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And it's fascinating reading. You'll be up all night.
And you are dead on, Shelley. I mean, just again, specifically, the population of the city of Maitland increased 13.4% in the last 12 months.
In the last 12 months?
12 months. Now, and the anticipated increase in population in the next 12 months was expected to be greater than that. Now, and the reason being, well, part of that certainly is that there's only one intersection of I-4 and Maitland Boulevard and 429 in the whole metro area. So we are made in Maine, North Orange County, even South Seminole County. So these are things that can't be ignored. Leadership and planning is so absolutely essential. And somebody has to get out in front and say, here's what's going to happen to us if we let life happen to us, rather than taking the initiative to decide what that's going to be.
And for those of you, who weren't around during the How Shall We Grow effort, in fact, how many around this table were not involved during the How Shall We Grow 10 years ago? Right.
Yeah.
So this book goes back and gives some of the history of that. And what I think, we heard from over 20,000 people. during that process. And we'd like to get similar numbers this time. That's what becomes a real leadership issue. How do we make sure that you are out in Maitland telling the story, but then inviting people to do the survey and get them to send that back in? So we really have good numbers, and part of the leadership group, I believe, needs to set some goals. How many surveys do we want? How do we get them? Where do we go to make sure that we're getting that information? And Commissioner Uribe, I think one of the issues is to keep it so that it isn't taking on everything. What we did in the original framework of How Shall We Grow still works together today. And that's 4 key areas: conservation, countryside, centers, and corridors. And how do those 4 have to work together to have a community that's not only economically prosperous, but has a quality of life that we all want to have here? I'm always amazed when I talk to people who don't want to see any growth at all. First, I ask where are your children and grandchildren going to live, because that's part of growth. But also, how do you balance having no density with wanting to preserve the beautiful countryside and environment that we have in Central Florida? We all have to make some choices about if it's all sprawl, and you'll see this in the book. We sprawled more than I think we had hoped we would in this because of the economic downturn, a lot of other factors, we sprawled more. We should be doing better about thinking about corridor development that has higher density. That's my own personal opinion. Because that will allow us then to preserve and protect more green space in this region. You can't have both. You can't have both. So those are the kind of conversations we had 10 years ago, and we need to have them again today.
Question? Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Because we want to cover just what's going to happen next with this. Just let me say again, I'm really passionate about this. I think this is natural for us, the council, to be doing this. It only makes sense that you're looking back and see where you went wrong and how should we move forward. And again, from elected official to elected official, if you want to be the smartest person on your council, your commission, or the 2 smartest, then this is a wonderful opportunity to be able to come forward and step forward. There's an opportunity for leadership, and you'll have all the latest data, and you'll be able to share those experiences from around Central Florida. There's a lot of great things that are happening in communities I don't even know about, and you'll be smart in bringing that back to your council or your commission for discussion.
And if you wouldn't mind, just one last point about that. I woke up this morning, and as I was reading the Orlando Sentinel, Commissioner Parks has an editorial in there on affordable housing. You got to read it.
I'm shocked that they put it in there. But thank you. I appreciate it. They did.
Really,
thank you.
But there are those are some elements that we have added to this report that we didn't necessarily even think to cover 10 years ago. The poverty level in Central Florida, how we've not necessarily grown economically advantaged for everyone, and the housing issue. 2 critical issues that back in 2006, we didn't have a housing problem, right? So those are the issues now we've added and woven into it that I think become even, in my opinion, some of the most critical issues as we look to the next decade. So here is what we are looking from this group is to approve the overall direction and to form and then volunteer to be on the Leadership Council. So those are our 2 requests at this time.
And it's going to, again, stress again, I know I'm probably repeating, being repetitive, but it requires us to show leadership and roll up our sleeves, maybe go to a few meetings, and the people that we want people to step up and be on this Leadership Council. And so that's going to require extra time, but I really believe it's going to be well worth it at the end. 12 months, maybe 8 months, maybe 18 months, we don't know, but somewhere in between. We're going to move with purpose and not make sure this is not a a waste of our time when elected officials and staff, for that matter, only have so much time in the day. This will be very purposeful and directed, and we'll stay on schedule or ahead of schedule.
Sean, you want us to do this now?
I think, yeah, we're asking for direction on this, so it'd be some kind of a motion.
Do we know what kind of commitment? I mean, what kind of, like, I'm interested, but I don't know what that means as far as time.
There's going to be additional meetings, and Shelley and Tara.
We were
Fred
talking
Philbin.
yesterday, and again, I
Yeah.
think we'll talk about that at our first meeting for you all to determine that, but at a minimum to begin, one a month to set the framework, get the story written, making sure that we've got the detail, who's the media that you want to make sure that we've got the direction from. So at least one meeting a month for the first 3 months, and then we'll figure out what the rollout plan looks like, depending on your feedback.
Yeah. That answers your question. Kind of?
Yeah. Okay. Are we meeting here? Okay.
Yes, maybe easier.
Myra meant to say what she and I just volunteered.
You just volunteered. Okay, we have our first 2 volunteers. That's awesome. Yes, sir.
I volunteer, Billy Whittle.
Don't you want to be the smartest person on your council, though?
I will be, but making that decision.
Yes. Okay, that's awesome. And of course, I'll volunteer myself to be a part of this.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, Dina?
Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Does it have to be a member of this council in terms of the board, or can we select somebody off our commission?
We prefer it be somebody from the council, and we are missing some members, so that we're going to give opportunity to everybody, but I think it could be, I don't see why not.
Well, I
We
want to say,
wanna
first of all,
engage.
Shelley, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the enthusiasm, and the product was exceptional. I shared it with our team. And Chairman, I just want to point out, we're talking particularly with this group, one of the newer members of the Lake Mary City Commission is with us today, Jordan Smith. He's a professional planner, and he works for the city of Sanford, and already his expertise on our commission has already helped us reformulate some of our public policy discussions and decision-making. And I think that what we're talking about for long-term, that's a kind of thing that makes us a better community and allows for, I think, better informed decision-making. I'm just so pleased that he's with us today, Jordan. Thank you.
Sounds like we have another volunteer.
Well, and I think, again, we want to figure out a cascade strategy that gets to more people in many ways. So social media, face-to-face meetings, I say, good voices who are passionate is what, in my opinion, what's most important.
Yeah, there'll be an opportunity again, especially for the elected officials to be, or if you're an expert in a certain area, to be out front with the media and advocating. Yes. Okay, Commissioner Medina as well, great. That's awesome. And the 20,000 survey number that you referenced, I mean, it'd be great if we got 50,000. Just think of the power that we'd have if we were able to get to that goal. And, what are we, 4.5 million? What's the population total? Yeah, so that would be, I mean, that's reasonable to try to go after, I think.
And we've added 2 counties.
Right.
So, from the original.
Okay. So there'll be a chance to continue to volunteer, so you don't have to say yes or no now, but we have already a good number, so that's great. And am I missing anything as far as what we need to do next? Do we need a motion on this Okay, I guess it doesn't hurt, yeah. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, everybody clear? Any kind of final discussion on that? The motion is basically just to continue to approve, the direction that we're headed in with this. So it's nothing more than that. That's clear. Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Passes unanimously.